welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming this afternoon, and thank you especially to John for giving up his time to educate us and hopefully give us a bit more info on things that we can do ourselves here to keep ourselves safe. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, John.
It's a very big build-up. I'll try my best to reach that pinnacle. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. So, yes, as Sarah introduced me, John Greenwood. I'm cybersecurity advisor working for Norfolk and Suffolk Constabulary. I'm police staff. I've been in post for a little over 2 years now. I come from an education in computing area background. Before that, a technical background. But what we're looking at today is hopefully protecting your organisation and yourself from cybercrime. So, this is relevant for you. 99% of the time, with just a little bit of business related top up. If there's any questions as we go through, feel free to pop them in the chat. There is going to be a few questions on slides, and I'm not asking for peace and war, just a yes no sort of answers in the chat as we go through. So setting the scene really, I work at Norfolk and Suffolk. My cyber protect work comes from National Cyber Security Centre, which is the government one-stop shop, if you like, for all things cyber. And then in the serious organised crime strategy, within the cyber unit based at Halesworth for Norfolk and Suffolk, we work against the 4 Ps. So pursue is arresting people, you'll be pleased to know. And there's a team of investigators who do that. Then there's protect, which is why we're here today, which is improving people's defence. Prevent, which is stopping young people getting involved in cybercrime. That's me as well. And prepare, which is improving business resilience. So the key thing to take from this is, don't go away and put steps in place and think that's me done. I'm never going to be a victim of cybercrime. They can still find a way. So it's really important that we're prepared for incidents as well as protected potentially from them. And at the top, it says cyber dependent crime. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide. Cyber prevent is actually now called cyber choices, just because it used to get confused with counter-terrorism. And that element, that program, it comes under the National Crime Agency. So I've just included that on there for completeness. You'll get all these slides. A lot of the images throughout the presentation, like the resource and things, are hyperlinks. So you can just click on and it will take you there. Honest, they're not phishing links. Okay, so cyber enabled, cyber dependent. I just touched on cyber dependent. So cyber dependent are pure cyber crimes. They're computer to computer. So ransomware, viruses, denial of service attacks, and hacking. Now, if those terms don't mean much to you, hopefully in a little over sort of 50 minutes, 45 minutes, they will. If not at the end, then shout at me and we'll go through them again. On the other side, we've got cyber enabled. So these are traditional crimes where by using technology, the criminals are increasing the reach or the scale. So the classic, investment scams. The other classic would be things like, back in the day when you used to get posts through saying you'd won the Australian lottery. Now we just get hundreds of emails. Just using technology, it's a lot cheaper for them, and they can target lots of people unrelated by geographical area. So I touched on National Cyber Security Centre. They are the single point of contact for individuals and organisations in the UK for all things cyber related. So I mentioned the hyperlink in like cyberware action plan on the left here. You can go in and complete that as an individual or as an organisation. It asks you some questions and it creates you a to-do list, basically. Another really good one is the top tips for staff training. That's an interactive little e-learning animated 25-minute staff awareness package. And there's lots of other tools on there. So the small business guide, 10 steps to cybersecurity. And then I mentioned about prepare. Exercise in the box is basically a roll top little sessions around different areas. So one might be, for instance, ransomware. If you had ransomware in your system, what would you do? And it would walk you through the stages of an attack to get you to role play that discussion, that scenario, and identify any potential holes. Now, the main piece of campaign around NCSC at the moment is Cyber Aware. That's targeted primarily at individuals and small/micros. So like I say, when you go on and do the Cyber Aware action plan, it will say, are you a small business or are you an individual? So why are we here? Well, stats are pretty shocking, really. 90% of organizations don't send their staff on cyber related training. And if they do, that maybe they do it, at induction. It's normally like an onboarding process with HR. Oh, have you read the IT policy? Do you know not to click on links? Tick, you're done, sort of thing. The key message for me from this is, throughout this whole presentation, I'll come back to it, but humans are a weakness. Okay, they're also a strength, but we can minimize that weakness by being aware, staff training, just keeping up to date. If you've got a small office, then just put a poster up every so often, or if it isn't a news article in the news, have a discussion around it or have a chat around it, because it keeps things ticking over. Unfortunately, even in good organizations, it tends to be, oh yeah, we did the annual cyber training. As we all know, technology changes rapidly and we need to stay aware. I mentioned the humans being a bit of a weakness. Data breaches, human error. That's intentional, that's compromised, that's accidental. So it could be, send an email to the wrong person with your customer details on. I saw one, the ex-head of the NCSC said she was undergoing cancer work and she had this on Twitter, and the NHS sent her someone else's patient details, and then they sent her patient details to an address she hadn't lived at for, I think it was like 2.5 years. So that's accidental. You obviously have malicious, and then you have compromise where someone gets into a system, which I think Stephen touched on earlier. We'll come back to that example. Phishing is a really common attack vector. We see it often. We see the emails, we see the text messages. I'm going to cover a little bit of that. I'm going to try and make the presentation fairly interactive to make sure you don't fall asleep, but there's not many of you, so I can see you. So there will be some questions pop up. Like I say, we'll get the answers in. What does it mean to businesses, though? So the National Cybersecurity Centre and Department for Culture do a regular cyber breaches survey. I just wanted to draw your eye to two bits here, really. One, number of breaches in the last 12 months. So you can see it's down. It's 7% down to 39%. And you look at that and go, oh, that's surprising. That's really good. But the cost, the actual loss, has more than doubled. So for me, that's saying that they're getting better. They're better at targeting organizations who are more likely to pay, and the loss is more impactful. So they're just getting better at extorting money. And we'll talk about ransomware later on, which is probably one that you all heard of and potentially quite worried about. What are the costs? Financial costs, yes, there's all the downtime. As Stephen mentioned, you've got to get the website back up and running. You need to restore from a backup. You potentially lose business during that time with the website down. Do you lose staff confidence or customer confidence, and the reputational damage in the long term? What does that mean for your organization? And that's a really difficult thing to quantify. So this is where protect and prepare really come in. On the left of this, we've got types of attackers. Now, nation states are, Russia, China, things like that. Now, generally, most businesses, unless they've got some really interesting intellectual property or they're large organizations, probably don't have to worry about that one. Insider threats at the bottom, as I mentioned, there's accidental and malicious there. But the term hacker, which I'm not a massive fan of, but the term hacker covers a whole host of different opportunities, basically. So cyber criminals, and that could be individuals or it could be serious organized crime groups. And we'll talk about those examples later on. Hacktivists, terrorists, and also what we call script kiddies, which are basically young people who are just bored and want to cause havoc or want to try and get into things for the challenge. And that's who I do work with under the Cyber Choices program. Unfortunately, there's a lot of material out there on how to access tools. So that's how they learn. Maybe they're not that technically able. So, for example, I had a young man in Suffolk who managed to kick his school off the internet for 4 hours. It cost him £10. That's 1,200 students who didn't do any learning or did limited learning because the school used an online platform for all their education. What the young person didn't know and probably didn't care about was the school's provider provided internet to a doctor's surgery. Doctor's surgery didn't have any internet for 4 hours. Well, looking up patient notes is very challenging there. So appointments were cancelled. He actually launched the attack 4 times. It cost him, I think, in total about £40 over 2 weeks. And at the end, the provider was they thought, well, it's the school. So they just disconnected the school's internet. So the school was then without internet for a week. while they got a new provider. So £40 and very limited technical knowledge there has caused a massive impact. On the right hand side, we've got the different attacks, and these are the most common ones we see against individuals and organizations. So phishing, account compromise. Account compromise is really the most common. They're trying to get your username and password for a system, a platform, your email if you're using Microsoft 365, potentially something like that. Denial of service attack, sometimes against businesses. We see this. This is where they're basically trying to kick your website offline so it doesn't work, so no one can visit it. And then malware, ransomware, where they're encrypting your files so that you can't access them and you have to pay a ransom for them, all the way down to accidental. We covered that on emails and leaving laptops and things like that in the wrong place, to malicious damage. You know, if you fire someone and it's a contentious issue, you should be removing their access before you fire them, those sorts of errors. And again, it's really key that they are not going after. I often hear businesses say, yeah, but would it happen to me? I did some work. I've been doing quite a lot of work with legal firms at the minute, and someone's staff training day said, yeah, but are we really likely to be targeted? And it was like, yeah, look at the value of your data. You know, you work in an industry where money changes hands frequently, and potentially technology is not up to date. And they were insistent that, well, I don't think it's that big a risk. And I was like, well, I could, there's two organizations locally that would disagree because they've been on the receiving end of ransomware attacks in the last 6 months. And they're smaller than you and the same sector. And he all of a sudden, he was like, oh, were they targeted? And I'm like, well, not really. They just got, they found a weakness, so they went with it. So tip of the iceberg today, really. These are the areas I want to touch on. If anyone, feel free, like I say, if you want more information, let me know, and we'll go into it, or we can come back to ones as well. And likewise, at the end, there'll be time for questions. So if you've got any specific examples or questions, we can do that. Now, social engineering is an interesting one. They're basically just trying to trick people. And this is, 98% rely on social engineering of types of attack. So unfortunately, in business, we are trying to generate business. So we're open to new contacts. We're speaking to new people, which instantly opens the business community up. Unfortunately, this statement at the bottom is really true. How criminals don't hack in, they log in. Obviously, some are very technically able and will hack in using vulnerabilities, but the majority log in. And they do that by phishing credentials off someone and getting them to give them to them, or looking up data breaches where companies have been breached and buying the information. So a business email address and password, for example, is available for about $10. So if you use 365, someone phished you, as part of a campaign, they would look to sell those credentials on for about $10. If you were in a financial sector or you're a financial controller within an organization, it would be worth more. Same if you were CEO. But it's a very monetized sort of marketing approach. I think a lot of people, before they hear me start nattering on, think that cyber is one person in the basement in a hoodie. It's not, unfortunately. It's very organized crime. Different people have different skills, and they will buy in different skills for different attack types. So what do we post online? Think about specific information that's out there. I worked with someone recently who on their website, they had compliance manager, their name, their picture. Someone then spoofed their email address and sent an email to the head of the sort of secretary, because it said on the page, these are our secretarial team, saying, I'm out of the office today. Could you just drop me a WhatsApp on this number? I've got some really important cases that we need to discuss. Just trying to get the communication to take them offline. But that information's on their website. Check privacy settings, register for data breaches. So have I been pwned? I'm going to show you an example of this later, but this is one of the key takeaways. Go and have a look at this website later on. Out of office, I'm still shocked by the amount of email auto replies I get. And they say things like, I'm away at the minute. I'm on holiday. It's going to be great. I'm going to Marbella. And if you want to talk to this project, talk to this person, this project, this person. I've just gained loads of really useful information there. And then the last is, doing some reconnaissance around yourself, your organization, what is out there, what is being said about you. So potentially you can save things like auto searches, where you have certain keywords and you get an email every day saying, has there been any search or any new content with your keyword search words in, which is quite a useful thing to do. You don't have to have it every day. It can come through once a week. So this oversharing, I thought I'd give this an example. This was the ex-Prime Minister of Australia, Tony Abbott, posted on Instagram, hashtag boarding pass, thanks to everyone on flight QF26 from Tokyo. An Australian cybersecurity consultant thought, well, we'll have a look at this. So he thought, well, I've got he had the picture of the airline tickets, which he blew up so he could have a look at. And he saw that he had the booking reference. So he thought, oh, I wonder what the website needs. The website needed the booking reference and the last name, which were both on the ticket. So he logged in. The website didn't show much, but he looked at the source code of the website, which is normally sort of pressing F11 or F12. And then it showed all of Mr. Abbott's passport details. So big gaps here in quantitative security, which was amended afterwards, but also a bit of a naivety around the oversharing element as well. And those two came together in this example. A bit of egg on the face there. It took them 45 minutes to find that information. It took about 3 months to get the information to Tony Abbott and his HR/PR team about the vulnerability, and for Qantas to fix it, and then for Mr. Abbott to realize that maybe he shouldn't be as forthcoming with his social moving forward. So I touched on phishing, really large cause of breaches. We all get those emails. They come through. That's the phishing style, smishing, text message, and then vishing voice. They're all the same thing. They're all trying to socially engineer you to do the wrong thing. So the emails are the ones we probably have been seeing for years. They have got better. Sometimes they'll be targeted, and I'll talk about that in a minute. That's spear phishing. But generally, they're trying to disguise themselves as something trustworthy, a company you may well use, and trying to get you to do the wrong thing. It could be clicking on a link, which takes you to a fake site, or giving away sensitive information. And there's a list of bullet points here about different features. It used to be, so it says typos and things like that. You will find the better phishing campaigns don't have typos, because they will have native speakers who will review the content in different languages. So they might say, oh, we've got this phishing campaign. We've got this list of people and they're in England and France and Spain. Right, this is the content we're going to send. They will have a website which is English, French and Spanish, and they will have phishing emails in each variation as well. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about bigger business. They do rely on some key psychological push and pull factors: urgency, authority, you need to do this now, or this is a great chance, don't miss out. Those sorts of elements as well. So have you received a phishing email to your work account this month? In the chat, let's see, yes or a no. What this tells me is it tells me who has good filtering set up on their emails. Some of you might well use the bigger providers like Outlook or Gmail and things like that. Oh yes, Stephen definitely has. No, not to my work email. Good. So what we're seeing there, and I like the fact you clarified not to my work, which brings you may well to your personal. A lot of the good email providers will look after this for you. And if you've got, I know someone mentioned earlier about an IT company, your IT company should have put controls in place to limit this. The classic personal, the Nigerian prince scam. I had a very similar one the other year where they said that my dad had died in a car crash in Zambia. I decided to play along. It was a great email thread, but didn't really get them anywhere. I didn't invest in their diamond mine at the end of it. So if we've got things in place, that's great. If we are getting emails through on our work account, that's something you should probably look at. Why are you getting emails through? Can we tighten up the filtering? If you have an IT company, can they suggest anything? What services are you using? At the bottom there, last April, Google blocked 100 million phishing emails a day. They're automatic. You don't see them unless you go and look in your spam folder. But what's interesting is a fifth of those were COVID related. So see how quickly they pivoted there on what was then about 6 week old. It was just getting in. It was big in the news then. So they will change their tact very quickly on new news. The current one, for instance, is COVID passports. Okay, so and then it will probably be HMRC, because we're getting closer to that sort of time of year as well. So they will change their methods. I mentioned the different types of phishing. Phishing en masse at the very bottom, you're talking, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of messages sent out. Spear phishing is where it's more personalized. Think of a mail merged email, basically, where they may have researched you, or they may well have collected some data about you from a data breach. And we'll talk about data breaches again later on. But spear phishing, you're more likely to reply to because it sounds more personal. And then whaling at the very top, this is where they would go after the decision makers, the financial controllers within an organization, looking to move forward to something like business email compromise, where they're trying to divert payments and things like that. There has been some really sophisticated whaling attacks, and what you'll find is it comes from reconnaissance. So I listened to a presentation recently from a national company, and they said it takes about, normally, if a company's going to be targeted specifically, the criminals will spend about 120 hours doing research. Okay, so if you think the amount of information you can glean on a company in 120 hours, that's quite a lot. You know, you could start with company's house, you could look at their social media, look at their website, vulnerability scan their website, look at the staff members, and then look at their LinkedIn. That's a minimum. Then you could do things like scraping different accounts for potential passwords. You could then review, once you've got the staff names, you could review data breaches to see if they've turned up in any of the data breaches. So lots of different techniques, unfortunately, for them. Here's a question then. Yes, Joe, don't worry, we've got the recording. Right, if a website has a padlock at the top, or it's in green and it says HTTPS, is it trustworthy? What do we think? Get your answers in the chat. Two yeses. Probably. Properly on the fence there. I like that. Nothing's 100%. Okay. Okay, so what about this then? So it looks like PayPal. It says PayPal. The page layout looks good. It's got a big green padlock. It says HTTPS. It says your connection to this site is private. That's all good. What do you reckon? Do you think this is real? There's not many of us, so if you just want to shout at me, I don't mind. URL smells a bit fishy. Yes, this is just it's got a water holing technique attack. So this is a fake site. It's made to look like PayPal. It's really easy to go online, find a bit of software that will copy a website. And then they've just set up their own website and host it there. They've tried to make it look good, secure.accountinginforming.com. They've brought a random domain. The padlock and the green just mean it's encrypted. So it's TLS or it's SSL encrypted. All that means is information between you and the site is encrypted and no one else can see it. It doesn't mean the site is genuine. Okay, so it's all about having a look at the URL at the top. Is it the one you know and trust? How did you get there from a place you trust? And there's something down there. It says at the bottom, site information. You've never visited this site today. Well, if you use PayPal and often, then you probably would have. We're into the game zone now. So real or phishing is the game. A R or a P in the chat, or a real or a fish. Sorry for the horrible phishing pun. I couldn't resist it. Let me know if you think this is real. So on the left is an email that's come in. Account deactivation, Office 365. Your account will be disconnected. And then on the right is the page. So resolve issue now takes you to the page on the right. Definitely dodgy. Phishing. Yeah, this one's pretty, there's a few clear giveaways on this one. The email address, they've spelled Microsoft wrong. The URL on the side, over on the right hand side, not secure. They've done a really good job again of ripping the page, and the tab says sign into your account. So they've done some things right, just doesn't quite look right. The main thing for me is the email address. Again, with all these emails, go via the site you trust. Okay, what about this one then? Just putting a reset in the chat. Do you think this one's real or fake? Unusual sign-in activity. Sign-in in Lagos, Nigeria. Okay, straight in. Everyone's a fake on this one. Yes. Oh, my job's done here. I can just go away. Okay. This one's interesting in that there's no actually clickable links here. They're getting you to ring a number. So it's quite clever because the link goes to Microsoft. So it's a genuine link, but they're encouraging you to ring the number, which is a scam call center. So a bit of a different one there. Email, no reply, msteam.2, dodgy as well. Okay, what about this one? Microsoft account, unusual sign-in activity. Sarah's not convinced. Neither Stephen. The rest of you, oh, yeah. Kate's not convinced either. Okay. I'd be phoning my, okay. I've had these, I ignore them. That one's real. So I put that in there because it's really difficult, basically. That shows you how difficult it is. And you can look at the top and say account-security-no reply account protection.microsoft.com. Right, okay. Other than, what makes it real? It's really difficult to tell, isn't it? So this is where we need to be making sure we go via, if we are using Microsoft for anything, go and log in at Microsoft.com or Outlook.com and go and use those things. Now, someone said in a previous one, they said, oh, well, it's got the email address, so it must be real. Well, it would be spear phishing, couldn't it? So many years ago, I was in a data breach with PlayStation. So PlayStation Online got breached, and there was about 7 bits of personal information: my name, age, address, email address, PlayStation password. I was getting emails forever after saying things like, hi, John, I know a password you use is Blair, and I know that because I'm watching you. I have control of your computer and things like that. So they were using those facts to try and trick me into thinking they had control of my computer. So this is a Norwich-based accountancy firm who got an email in June. I've redacted it, so where it says company, actually, I put company instead of their actual company name. But it looked like it came from their IT support company because, yeah, why not? So this was definitely spear phishing. The sender knew who their IT support company were. They knew who the financial controller was. They knew, or they guessed, that they used 365. They gave them a fear of missing out event. You need to do this, otherwise you might be missing out on something. There's the malicious link. They knew the IT support company's sign off. So they obviously had seen an email somewhere because they copied the signature really well. So looked good. That took them to this page. The one clever thing about this attack was that they spoofed, they pre-filled the sign-in. So it said Vicky at thecompany.co.uk. At this point, they looked at the top, saw the horrible URL, saw that it wasn't secured, and frantically rang me up. They haven't done anything, it's fine, but the aim of the game here was to get that person to sign in. Then the criminal would have done 2 things. They could have said, oh, sorry, error, log it in, close page and retry. And that would have been to try and, move suspicion, i.e., oh, don't worry about it. We've got your password. Please carry on business as usual. We're going to be doing stuff in the background. Or they would have logged them out, changed the password as quickly as possible. In this case, the organization uses 2-factor authentication as well. So that's a second layer to get through. But there's the 2 giveaways. So what can we do for us as users? And someone's already said this: validate, looking to prove they are who they say they are. Check the links, hover over them. Don't bother even clicking the links. Just go straight to the site via the known URL. You can also report suspicious emails, report at phishing.gov.uk. And if your company uses Office 365, you can set this up automatically. And text messages can be reported as well to 7726. Now, what does that mean? What does it do? Well, if I send them, the emails, the NCSC try and take down the sites and take down the scams. And Ofcom with the mobiles do the same. So my mum had a COVID scam towards the start of this year saying she was due a jab. She was due a jab. She was in the right age group. They just got really lucky. She clicked the link. It looked like NHS. She started filling it in. When it asked for her national insurance number and other details, she was like, oh, why is it doing this? Showed my dad. My dad went slightly crazy, rang me, sent me the message. I forwarded it on and thought, I'll have a look and see if it's still there to take some examples the next day. And it had been taken down. So the site was in the UK. So they'd managed to take that site down. So, ultimately, you might sit there and go, it's obvious, but potentially you're protecting someone else. From an organizational point of view, make it really more difficult for those emails to get through. Training. And then if someone does click on a link, what would happen? Do you have software in place that would go, hang on, you're trying to run something, or that this site isn't real? What would your internal systems do? If you do click on it, act quickly. Go in, change your details if you're on your own, or IT company, get in contact with them ASAP so they can lock that account down. And at the bottom, it says register alternative addresses. So let's say we've seen this recently in an attack again on a legal firm, and their email address was saying, so John Solicitors. So the criminal brought John's Solicitors and then sent emails from John's Solicitors. And they looked right, didn't they? There was only one character different. So might be worth something looking at. It's called cyber swatting or website swatting. So I thought I'd touch on this scam because just a quick show in the chat, how many of you have received this text message? A parcel is due for delivery. You need to click here. Yes, several. Yeah. Okay. So this is an example of an ex-police officer. He got it. He was waiting a parcel. It came through. His was $1.99. He clicked on it. This was the web page. He went through. He filled in his details. At that point, you're sitting there going, oh, you've lost $1.99. Not the end of the world. So that is phishing scam 1. It's sent to hundreds of thousands of people. What they then did, or another organized crime group did, who got sold the lead. So this could have been passed to a specialist team who do voice phishing, if you like, or phishing, with a, well, you ring him. If you get anything, we'll take 20%. It does work like that. It's like an affiliate model. So in this case, he then got a phone call. Hello, this is the fraud department of your bank. Can I speak to Mr. Brown with a card ending 6421? Yes, that's me. Can I just confirm your address is 56 The Mews or whatever? Yes, that's me. Oh, sir, I'm afraid there's been some potentially fraudulent activity on your account. Where did they get that information from? Well, he gave it to them. The next thing they said was, I know this come out of the blue, so if you would like to check our number I'm calling on, please turn over your card from our bank and you'll see the number is the number quoted on the back of your card. Turns it over. It is. Okay. This is called number spoofing. Unfortunately, this is really common. Technology is not going to be able to stop this for about another 10 years fully. So at this point, he's thinking, well, they're the bank. They're calling from the right number. They had my name. They had the last 4 digits of my card. They knew my address. And they say, have you done anything unusual recently? Have you fallen, given any card details? No. Oh, one of the popular ones at the minute is Parcel Scams. Have you had an email or a text message about that? Oh, I had a text message. Were you waiting for delivery? Well, I was. Have you had it since? Yes, I have. So this is quite common, sir. Blah, 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 blah. We need to move your money to a safe account. He did so. And that's where his £3,000 went. So quite a sophisticated 2 layers of scam there. But this has been really quite common in the last year or so, especially during COVID. Okay, passwords, my favorite topic. This is where everyone goes, oh, no, not passwords. Do you reuse passwords? Let's see. I don't need to know your passwords. Just a yes or a no or a sometimes. I can see 4 people sniggering here, which means I've got 4 yeses straight away. They might not own up to it, but I can tell. Partially, some, maybe, no, maybe. Classic, Sarah, maybe. So the passwords on the screen here are the most commonly seen passwords on the planet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has been seen over 23 million times, which is quite concerning. People use these passwords because they're easy. Well, that means they're easy to guess as well, ultimately. So I mentioned earlier that data breaches against individuals especially are an account compromise are one of the main types of account we see at a local level. So picture this: you sign up to a website. I'll use my example earlier, PlayStation. Before I had a child and I was able to game in the evenings, I signed up to use their service. I gave them some information, that's me handing it over, and they store it somewhere. Someone clever comes along, hacks them and steals the data, and then sells it probably in lists, so to speak. Someone else then might buy it. And then this person would try and log in, but they'd also try other sites. So they might find they'd have my PlayStation username and password from 2012. They'd try it on PlayStation. They might get in if they were quick enough. But they'd go, well, I wonder if he uses it on Gmail, Hotmail, PayPal, eBay, Amazon, and they just try the lot. This is called a credential stuffing attack. And this isn't, I think a lot of people think, oh, yeah, but it's going to take them ages to do that. They would use a piece of software, an illegal piece of software. They put in the list and say, try these sites. And they would go and have a cup of tea. And it would come back and they'd say, ding, 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 these ones we think might work. So it would, limit it down pretty quickly. And then that person might use them or might then sell them on as OG real credentials for further attacks. Have I been pwned? I mentioned that earlier on. I'm going to show you an example of how I've been pwned, but that will tell you if your email address or phone number has been in a breach. It will also tell you if your password's been in a breach. You don't enter the two at the same time. Phishing, same deal. You just cut the middleman out. You're giving your information straight to the criminal, and then they're packaging it up and using it. So have I been pwned? I mentioned this here. If you're feeling brave enough, you can go and have a look at this. This is me putting my email address in, 12 data breaches and 2 pastes. So I've had that personal email address for 20 years now. I can't believe that. No, I haven't. Yes, I have. 20 years. God, time flies. And I've been in 12 data breaches. And these are big, 773 million email addresses and passwords. Email addresses, employers, geographical location, job titles. So lots of information about me is potentially out there. And at the bottom, it talks about pastes. Pastes are literally your information on the internet. You don't even need to find it in any forum or dark web or anything malicious. You literally click the link and it'll give you a list of usernames and passwords. Quite scary. So I'd really recommend everyone go and have a look at that. You can sign up to it as well. So it's not an NCSC service, but it is recommended. You can set a notification so that if, lo and behold, your email address then pops up, they send you an email and say you've been in a new data breach. This is the information about it. If you have a company email address and you have, like John, James, Jane, and Sophie all at John's Solicitors, you can register your whole domain, you're at John's Solicitors, and then one person would be notified if anyone turns up in a data breach. Free service, really recommend having a look at that one. And again, I mentioned you can put your password in there as well. Phone numbers is a new one. You can put that in there as well. I put my phone number in the other day. Unfortunately, I was in the PlayStation hack recently. Sorry, the Facebook hack recently. 500 million people's details. My phone number on there. Didn't think I had it on there. So what can we do? Strong separate passwords. This is where everyone's like, oh, I can't handle all these passwords. We're going to talk about how you can hopefully manage those. National guidance is 3 random words. So look around you, wall, bottle, fish. Okay. That's not because I've got a live fish. I've just got an ornament of a fish sitting on my desk. So I'll throw that in there. And then you can add complexity, numbers, and special characters. If you struggle to remember passwords, and everyone would, I've got over 283 accounts last time I checked. Password managers, which is a piece of software, you remember one really strong password and it remembers them for you. You might have this on your phone already if you've got an iPhone or Android, where you put your fingerprint in and it logs you in automatically. Saving your passwords in browsers. If that's your computer and you have a login to it, that's fine as well. 2-factor authentication, I'm going to mention in a minute. At the top, it says protect your email. This is especially true from a business and a personal point of view. If you think both of them, if someone gets into your email, they can reset all your other accounts potentially, but they can also see all of your correspondence over potentially, for my case, 20 years. In there, I know there are photocopies of a driving license, for instance. There's information that we have in our email that we maybe don't maintain or spring clean as often as we should. And emails always have really good search functionality. So they can say, well, show me all attachments, show me anything with payment, bill, card details, and they could find that. So protecting email is really important. 2FA, if we've got strong unique passwords and 2FA, they're going to move on to easier pickings, basically. Two-factor authentication is the code you get text or the app you have to open. Now, most platforms should support 2FA. If they don't, I would be questioning why, and potentially I'd be moving, especially if it's email. We do find some older email providers like Virgin Media. It's a product they provided with their internet connection years ago. They've never updated it. They never intend to, just don't use it. Okay. So 2FA and a strong unique password, much less likely to be a victim. That's individuals or businesses. Do you use 2FA for your personal email? Let's see. I reckon we're going to be at about 20%, 40% here. Oh no, maybe not. Got one person. Well done, Kate. Top of the class. While you're answering that, bear me 1 second. The joys of working from home. Sorry about that. No, but just use a strong password. Yeah, that was someone at the door trying to sell me something. No, they're dropping off a parcel. Nope, just wondering how I can start. And I think that's the other thing. Cyber is one of those areas that is very scary. Now, how do I possibly start to get into this? At the end, I'm going to give you a couple of resources so you can easily access some basics to go away and do those. Yeah, my personal address is Gmail. That offers 2FA. Yeah, most of the bigger providers will. It isn't on by default. Gmail are adding it as a default moving forward, I think from Christmas actually. But historically, they want you to sign up as quickly as possible. So it's normally a feature you have to enable. And you can see a stat there, 13% of people use the same password for all their accounts. You lose it once, potentially all your accounts are open. Do you use any 2FA for work? Yes. Banking, yes. Excellent. Yeah, all the banks will do that now. You've got your PIN centuries. It pops up on your phone saying, is this definitely you? Those sorts of things. What I would say is any work emails, 2FA. Any social media, if you're doing anything on social media, 2FA. Think about the reputational damage if someone got into your social media accounts and did something. Okay, might be an action for you there to have a chat with your IT team. Okay, so the main loss for organizations globally from cyber is fraud relating to business email compromise. They get into an email account, they will change a regular payment or say to a supplier that the payment details have changed, that sort of thing. This is really big. And quite often, once they get into your email, they will do this by setting up email forwarding rules, and then they won't do anything. You won't know your account's been compromised. They won't change your password. You'll go around happy as Larry, sending off invoices. Please pay this invoice. Their forwarding rule will say any email coming in or going out saying invoice payment, anything like that, bill, send to me instead. And the criminal gets it and goes, oh, I just need to log back into that account, resend it with my bank details, and they're away. We saw this with an organization in Norfolk where their email signature had their bank details in. So someone got into their email and they just changed the email signature. And that was it. They didn't, it wasn't exactly mastermind sort of level stuff here, but the organization didn't notice for, I think it was 2.5 months. And they were chasing people saying, you haven't paid. No, I have. And then they realized that the numbers were slightly different on their account. Banks have stopped this now. They were trying to stop this with when you put it in, it pops the person's name up. There is that element now that's coming in. Excellent. Okay, a couple of people talking 2FA, MailChimp. Yes. So from this point of view, it's policy procedure. If you're going to change payment details or one of your suppliers is, Well, what is the process for that? How do you go about doing it? Double checking. We've identified some businesses pick this up quite cunningly by, they get the email, it says new payment details, thanks very much, and then they go back and, oh, okay, when does that change? They give an update, and the language doesn't sound right. We had one organization in Norwich who someone sent them, here's our new payment details, can you make sure it's processed ASAP, God bless. And they were like, I know that person isn't that religious, I've never seen it before, and they didn't mention it when I went for a pint with them last week. Therefore, it red flagged them. When we reached out, two other companies had paid because they just went, yeah, okay. So it was only because they had a personal link in there. Flag suspicious activity. So maybe your IT systems can say, hang on, why is someone logging in from outside the UK? That should be a flag. Wary of oversharing, we talked about that earlier. And then 2FA for email accounts makes it ultimately harder for them to get into the email in the first place. So do you have any procedures in place? If you change payment details or your suppliers, what would you do? Would you reach out? Would you check? Yeah, and this is a really interesting one. I had a chap come and clean my gutters a while back, and it's the first time I'd used him, and he emailed me the invoice, and I just WhatsApp him saying, can you just confirm the last 4 digits are? And he was like, yeah. And next time I saw him, I had to go through this conversation of, someone got into your invoice template, they could just change it and all your customers will be playing someone else. Of course. So malicious software designed to break or disrupt how a system works, basically. Normally triggered by the user clicking or opening a file or opening an attachment. Like this. You get an email through, this is a bit old school now, but you get an email through with a document saying click here, it's protected, or bits are blurred out, enable content, you click it, you've just launched an attack on yourself. Most antivirus should hopefully stop these, but if the human didn't click on it in the first place, we wouldn't even need to worry about it. Ransomware is the one that's been in the news, I would say, and it's probably at the top of most organizations. I hope this never happens to us list. It gets onto a system, it spreads very quickly. Once it's actually run, it starts encrypting files within about 3 seconds. It can spread to other computers on a network within 20 seconds. You're talking, a couple of minutes. Well, I watched a presentation from a ransomware specialist company, and they said they saw the quickest spread they'd ever seen, and it was like 20,000 devices in 7 minutes. So that's obviously a big company, not based in one site. So it's gone across their corporate network. It's gone to different types of devices, gone through phones. It's gone, not just Windows computers. It's moved different devices. They can often sit dormant. So I'm going to show you an example in a minute where an organization in Suffolk got hit, but they'd actually been accessed about 2.5 months before the ransomware ran. So they've had some time there. Data can be stolen from the network. So this is 2 payment sides, it's called. So the first one, give us the money or you won't get your files back. You go, oh, I'm not going to pay then. I've got a backup. And they're like, okay, give us the money or we'll sell your files or we'll leak your files. So there's 2 types of extortion there, double extortion ransomware. Most of them sadly do that now. So this is the example of an organization in Suffolk. Theirs was a weakness. So they'd moved to remote working during lockdown. Their remote access, basically, someone just tried with a piece of software to log in with common passwords, and they got in on about the 800th and something attempt. And for some reason, the system controls weren't locked down. So normally you would expect it, after 2 attempts, it says, this account has been disabled or something like that. That wasn't set up. They got into the system. They improved their privileges so they could add it and admin and delete things. They spent a long time researching, looking around, is this company worth it? How big are they? Where's their important data? And then they sat there. So the hibernation time is this person going away and going, right, how can I get money out of them? They go, okay, I'm going to do ransomware. Your average cyber criminal doesn't go, oh, where's my ransomware toolkit? Here it is. They go to a reseller. So software as a service. We use Microsoft or Gmail. They use Ransomware or Us. So one of the big groups, which recently has been taken down, are called R Evil, or Stowmarket was one of their names, which was an Eastern European threat actor. So they would go to them on the dark web and say, can you sell me your ransomware? And they would say, yeah, we've never worked with you before, so we'll give you the ransomware. We will do the customer service side. We'll launder the cash, the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, and we'll give you 30% of whatever we get. So they're taking a 70% cut. This is what I mean about organized crime and big money moving around. If they knew them, then it would probably be a lot less. Oh, well, it's you get 60%, we get 40% because they're a trusted person. They know it's probably a good deal. In this case, the person didn't pay, so obviously they didn't get the data back. Since this, in last month actually, this ransomware group, this strain, Stowmarket, was the unencryption tool was released, so they can now access their data if they've still got it. But we're talking a year after the breach happened. The data was stolen during that hibernation period time. 15 gig of data was stolen. They said, we're not going to pay. So they contacted them and said, okay, we're just going to sell your data on the dark web in an eBay type style auction. So impact for the company here, for the organization. Downtime. I failed to mention, they launched the attack. They executed it on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Everyone was due back in the office after first lockdown on Monday morning. All of a sudden, nothing was working Monday morning. So they time it to run at the worst possible time. Data loss with the exfiltrated data, potentially the embarrassment and the reputational damage of it being sold off, the reporting to the Information Commissioner's Office, lots of different strands to consider there. What can we do? Prevent it getting there in the first place, prevent the malware running, have better protection, boundary protection, so they couldn't just guess the password 800 times, would have been an easy one for them. Make backups. A lot of the time, organizations say, oh, well, we've got a backup. And I'm dealing with an organization in Norfolk, actually, who at the end of August got hit with ransomware, and they'd done everything right. They had backups, they had an IT company, they had an insurance policy. I spoke to them last week and they said, we're almost back up and running. 6 weeks. And they're almost back up and running. So it goes to show how long it can take to recover data. From a user point of view, if you think you've ran a piece of software that you shouldn't, unplug it, unplug the computer. I know that sounds very old school. Go and unplug it at the back and then speak to someone very quickly. Prepare. What would you do if there was an incident? So again, I mentioned there's links. So this is a hyperlink up here that will take you to the NCSC's guidance around ransomware. And there is some easy wins there. So, regular testing, making sure everything's up to date, those sorts of things can help you. Insider threats, I think this is pretty much our last section. I've covered this already, really. Negligence, malicious or compromised, i.e. someone's been phished. Do you have regular staff training, IT, cyber security training before today? A yes or a no. So 10% of businesses don't, or don't do it, or only do it once a year. Schools are better because they're more aware of the value of their data and importance. They're at 65% do. Businesses are only 10%. Just me, Stephen, you're learning today. There we go. It's all good. If it is just you, that's fine. It's just one of those things to have on your radar. And if if you've got a friendly IT company, that's always quite helpful as well. Just conversations, sole traders. So the sole trader element, for me, micros and sole traders are the ones I'm trying to hit, and it's really difficult to hit. Most medium to large organizations have an IT team. Most sole traders either have someone who does a bit of work for them now and then, or they know someone they can call. But as long as it works, they don't, they might not touch it for a long time. So I worked with actually a family friend recently whose website was compromised. And I said, oh, when was it updated last? And he said, what do you mean? So he was running a WordPress website and he hadn't updated his plugins. And that's how they'd managed to get into his hosting server and delete his files. And I said, well, where's your backup? And he said, do I have to do that? at this point, I was like, I think we need to have a conversation. So simple things there. If he'd have kept things back up to date, it could just be a calendar reminder saying, go on once a month and press this button, or tell Dave at IT's or us to update my computer. Little things like that we can build in. Excellent, Colin. That's good news as well. I would say, once you find a good IT provider, ask them questions. Say, what would happen if? Can we have this? Do we do this? That's always good news as well. Training, ongoing, typical, easy to access, no blame culture. If you're a sole trader, please, if there's something that happens, don't go, oh, it's all my fault. Again, they're professionals. It's what they do. And they're looking, they might get a hit. They only really have to get lucky once, and we have to stay lucky all the time, unfortunately. Limit access to data, revoke levers, 2FA, logs and monitoring might be worth. If you've got an IT company, what monitoring is there on our emails? This often doesn't stop people from the logs don't stop them, but it helps after the event identify who and where. Monitoring would be, like I mentioned earlier. So, if you're using 365 or something like that, and you've got a login from China, it would say, hang on a minute, this doesn't look right, and tell someone, or just lock the email down. Cyber aware, I mentioned earlier. These are 3 of the other top tips for individuals: update devices, antivirus, and backing up your most important data. What is your most important data? It's down to you. As an organization, it'll be very different from your personal life. Testing backups. Where are your backups? Do you keep a backup disconnected? So we had one graphics design company recently who got hit with ransomware. Interestingly, most ransomware, when it runs, checks the keyboard language. And if it's Eastern European, it doesn't run. Where do you think ransomware comes from? What does that mean? But in their case, it encrypted all Word files, Office files, Excel files, and PDFs. Well, they're a graphics design company. They were the luckiest people I've ever spoke to, because all their files were Illustrator files, Photoshop files, and video files. So they were quite lucky in that case. But at that point, they realized they needed better backup. Physical access, do you share your computers with family members? Do you leave it around? Is it, if you take it outside the office and it has customer data on, is it encrypted? Relevant policy procedures we've touched on. If there is staff, or if it is just you, if in doubt, speak to someone, reach out to IT teams, say, is this normal? I've done this, is this right? Those are the questions we need to be encouraging. Loads of NCSC resources. I'll leave this on here. They're all hyperlinked. Insurance is an interesting one. If you have got insurance that covers cyber, or if you don't know if it does, it would be worth a question. What does it cover? What does it not cover? Do you have to meet minimum standards? Have you as an organization identified what's most important to you and assess the risk associated with it? Okay. Have we got the time? Yes, I'll show you this. This is a little video. So this is to try and bring home the cyber world into the real world. Hopefully the sound works. Shout me.
Had a shop.
Has that been open the whole time?
Look at the bee and the bike on a logo.
Seen the other side of the road.
Oh, is that my twin? Oh, it's a fake Brompton.
It's exactly the same.
What the hell?
I've had people walking past are like, what are 2 Brompton stores doing right opposite each other?
So weird.
Like, I feel like I'm in some parallel universe.
That's a couple who are just in here, right?
Yeah.
They bought a bike.
They walked in from here.
And then they went over there.
Type in their website.
I'm really confused.
Go walk over there.
We just wondered what was going on. He was like, do you want to test out one of our bikes? No. They've got the same tags as us.
They're having those of Bromptons delivered into their shop.
What?
What's happening?
I think these are our...
Delivery 146.
You sure this isn't delivery for over the inside
Brompton. No, it's here, mate.
Are you Brompton?
No, Brompton.
No, I can't even do it. What the hell? All right, we've got customers.
Hold on.
Hi guys.
Price are in a Brompton. How many prices? How much do they weigh?
£840. Super Bro leather. Bigger tyres.
Give us a demonstration.
There's a couple of different methods.
Sorry, just 1 second, sir.
How many parts? Sorry. Actually, yes, stand back a second. Componentry, materials.
Gary, what's the smallest size?
If you don't want the mud guards, take them off.
See you later. Bye-bye. See you.
What was that?
The guy said, tell me your favourite 3 things about the tyre.
What the hell is going on?
You're getting closed down.
Really? What should we do?
Oh, whoa.
What are you doing? Can you take the sign down, please?
This is not okay.
The fact that you don't know what to do in that situation, it's daunting, really.
It's one thing if you see it online, but as you see it right in front of you, it kind of really brings it home that this is happening probably everywhere with every brand.
I was in so much shock, I was just going to take my t-shirt off and just walk out. I was like, what is going on? Like,
to see the company that you work for being undermined like that, and kind of really makes it real.
Every hack in this film is based on real criminal methods. If you fall victim...
Okay. Just ended up my screen share. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this. Okay, we're just about there. So I'm just going to jump back in. So hopefully that sort of brings that element of it to the forefront a little bit more. It's nice when you see, it's very difficult to understand cyber and get the point of it when it's just on screen and me nattering at you, a bit scaring you to death for an hour. But when you see these attacks in real life as a metaphor, it's quite helpful. What do I do? There's 2 of me. There is another one, not 2 of me, but there's 2 cybersecurity advisors. We deliver this sort of messaging. We deliver training to staff, signposting to resources, in boards and things. We do role playing games around Lego. We give companies cyber basics reviews. This is basically where we come in, we speak to someone knowledgeable about the IT, about the company, and try and identify potentially areas for improvement or concern, and create a report. We'd also look to direct you to things like Cyber Essentials, which is the government rubber stamp. So if you do the Cyber Aware online action plan and you are all golden, brilliant, maybe you should have a look at the Cyber Essentials readiness toolkit. If you're good there as well, then you could look at Cyber Essentials, small payment for the approval, and you get the rubber stamp basically saying, we meet minimum standards around certain areas relating to cybersecurity. So that's something I'd encourage as well. If you are a victim individually or your organization, please keep evidence. It's really tricky to investigate anything when there's no evidence. Normally with businesses, their first port of call is getting up and running. Fully understand that. But please try and take pictures, keep copies of files, that sort of thing. All fraud and cyber needs to be reported via action fraud, and then it's passed down to local or regional, depending on the severity. But the investigators keep coming back to me on this one because a lot of the time businesses will contact us and say, yeah, we're a victim of this. And okay, have you got the emails? No, we deleted them. Right, okay. Have you got any logs? Nope, we wiped everything. Okay. Probably not much we can do, but that's when they normally get pointed to me and we talk about the different areas around prepare and being a bit more resilient. Some other free tools. So there is the Cyber Resilience Center for the East, free membership. This has been up and running for about 5 months now. It's a police-backed organization. It's run by a DCI from Bedford, I believe he is. And they provide some basic levels of service. They provide events, all free. And then they also have access to some reduced rate activities. So things like vulnerability scanning and things like that. They will also help you with incident management. So I referred an organization to the CRC recently who had just been ransomware. And as police staff and in this role, I can't say you need to go and speak to Bob's Computers around the corner. The CRC can say, here's a list of trusted partners who are nationally approved locally. So that's quite a good one, free to sign up for free there. Police cyber alarm. If you have a system that runs a firewall, if you're that sort of size organization, this will sit on the firewall and identify any suspicious or malicious inbound traffic and send you a nice report every week and identify any vulnerabilities and include free vulnerability scanning. Really good. NCSC provides some around their active cyber defense as well, and one's called early warning system, which is outbound traffic. If you're a sole trader, you probably don't have enough IT infrastructure to support the latter two, but anyone can sign up to the CRC. So, that's a resource really worth looking at. And then again, we've covered these: National Cybersecurity Centre, Cyber Aware, Action Fraud, Take 5, Stop Fraud. I haven't really touched on fraud. Massive problem, targeting older people. Now, older people lose the money, but we're seeing a lot of targeted fraud at younger people advertised via social media and things like that. So, the big ones at the moment are cryptocurrency investment scams. We're seeing a lot of. That's where I was this morning. I was installing a call blocker at a lady who'd lost £7,000 and £1,000 to two separate investment scams. And the last one was, cryptocurrency investment. If you give us £1,000, we'll make you £2,000, and that sort of thing. Always take it with a pinch of salt. Check your FCA and things like that. Cyber Essentials, I've mentioned. CISP is a knowledge sharing platform for those working in the technology area. And then Get Safe Online. For individuals, there's some quite nice and easy to access videos on there. So we're there. As a result, are you going to be changing anything? So from action points, I would say strong unique passwords and 2FA. That's your main 2 action points to take away. Think about backing up your data. And then when you get 5 minutes, go and have a look on Have I Been Pwned and see if you've been in any deep breaches and sign up on there. And they're the steps we do. Oh, yes, definitely. Yes. Looking at passwords and pwned. Yeah. Anyone want to be brave and tell me if they've been in any pwns? It's always interesting. The longer you've had the site, the more likely you are to be in data breaches. Data breaches are not your fault. They are the companies that you have entrusted with your data who have been breached. What can we do? Make sure we don't use those passwords again. If we've got a lot of breaches, we could consider changing email addresses. But again, people get caught up on their email addresses. Yeah, so Stephen, that one earlier sounded quite interesting. So yeah, how did that malicious software get onto the web hosting platform? Was it a what type of site is it? Is it WordPress? Is it a Wix, a builder, or is it a custom site?
It's a WordPress one, which is sort of built around a trusted platform called LearnDash. But I think where the issue came in was SiteGround used a facility called Staging Site, which allows you to build something in parallel with a live site. Right. And I noticed for a while the staging site wasn't secure. And I'm just wondering whether that was the way in, because I haven't seen any logs where there was a suspicious looking login. So from that point of view, not an issue. And it's got the same plugins. They're all up to date, and the ransom or the malware hasn't come back. So I'm wondering whether it might have been an issue within SiteGround, but I'm having a chat with them about it and they're looking into it. So
that's good. Good to hear. I mean, yeah, we often see WordPress sites, it's things not up to date or unsecured plugins and things like that. There is attacks like they're called Sql Injection, where if you've got forms, you can inject code and inject malicious payloads that way. But generally, I mean, when you said you've looked at logs and there's no suspicious logins, that's unusual for me. I'm already interested because normally that would be the way in. But I would suspect, like you said, it's a partner piece of software or something that links in that potentially had the vulnerability, and that's how they've managed to get in. Excellent. Personals have been, work ones haven't already. Yes, great. Look at Cyber Aware. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, you can unmute now and ask any questions. I will send these slides, like I mentioned. I will send a little survey round as well. It'd be great to get feedback and secure my funding for another year. Would be lovely. But otherwise, there's my email address on the first slide, and then the generic email addresses on here as well. We do have Twitter for the pain it causes, so feel free to follow. and we do post national campaigns and also any local trends we're seeing on there as well.
Thank you, John. That was so helpful.
At least everyone's still here. That's a success to start with.
Yeah.
I do have a question actually. I mean, quite a few people actually do build their own websites now, because you've got Wix and all the rest of it. Wix, yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Wix as in the builders merchants. But one thing I haven't noticed is very easily obtainable is the website that actually gives you an indication of how vulnerable well-known plugins are. And I have since found a couple of websites that provide that information, and it's very, very useful. But it's not something which seems to be very well known. I mean, is that something that you, John, could actually include in any information that you make this made available to people?
Yeah, I think the problem you've got there, Stephen, is obviously a lot of the time vulnerabilities are only known after they've either been exposed. So that's where your CVEs, critical vulnerable exploits, come in, and MITRE attack lists and things like that. So CVEs, there's a couple of sites, I'll include those. Normally you can set up notifications on there, so you can say, if a WordPress plugin comes in. But what's quite nice on there is you can go on and say WordPress, and it will show you, and then you can click plugins, and it will show you known CVEs within those areas. Yeah. So I'll add that to the email that I send over to Sarah afterwards. But it's unfortunately, it would be lovely to say, you go on a website and say, I use these things, and then magically it all appears with like, this is what you should do. Maybe in a few years we'll get there, but at the minute we're not quite there, unfortunately. Any others? No, I don't think so. Oh, I think some people are typing.
Someone's typing, are they? Yeah, thank you, John. Really appreciate your time. I'm sure everyone else is in agreement that will be certainly some things in there for me to go away and look at, and follow some of those links, and hopefully be a bit safer. It definitely isn't a joke. I've experienced it in my past company before. Someone impersonating a business to place an order. They opened a credit account and they stole some shipping containers to the value of about £20,000. So that's one. And then also my industry, quite commonly people are popping up websites of fake businesses, and that sort of thing. So it is amazingly common. It's all the time it's happening, but you don't always find out about it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that it's the scale, isn't it? Online, yeah. It's very difficult. It used to be back in the day, it would be, you'd have your local Bobby and he'd know the local rogue, so to speak. And now it's like, well, who's going to police the people in every country on the planet who can reach everyone everywhere with internet connected devices? It's a challenge, definitely. I think law enforcement is hope we're up to the challenge. I think it's going to be a long one, but collaborative working, hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yes, David, I'll send the slides over to Sarah as soon as we finish.